Parents, I have some bad news. I am completely black-pilled on public schools. Now, I've hinted at that. I've even come out and said it in various videos and live streams, but I've never made a video specifically devoted to explaining to you how black-pilled I am, why I am, and why I think you should be too. Okay, so first of all, I've gotten into it today on Twitter. I've gotten into it with some people who think I'm attacking you. I think I'm attacking you parents because I have said that I am going scorched earth. That means I am going to make the case that public schools, public school unions, public school teachers, public school curriculum, etc., are just broken beyond repair. That reform is not the name of the game here. That what you are up against is an existential threat to your child's mental health and long-term intellectual and academic success. If it's something you've taken enough interest in that it has landed you here, chances are you've seen plenty of evidence. And the only thing I can imagine that's left is a lingering sense of denial or just wishful thinking. And I'm not saying that to be judgmental. I'm just going through the thought process, and that's what would be realistic. That's what I would be feeling if I were in your shoes. And that is to say, you have this money taken from you by force. You can't choose whether or not to pay the taxes for the schools. Education for your children is compulsory. That means if you don't find some other way to get them an education and they don't show up at the school, you're in trouble. You may not have agreement from your spouse, from your family members, from your child to pull them out of the school. And you don't want to believe, because this is human nature, that people who come to you saying their intentions are good, saying they care about your children, having a smiling face and a nice demeanor, and for all the world coming across like really super nice people, that they could be a threat to your kid. We're almost hardwired not to believe it, that there are certain behaviors, a certain tone, and certain things people say that reassure us and make us feel like, no, I must be wrong. That Deb woman on YouTube, she's probably just panicked or she's talking about schools other than mine. That's in those other school districts. That's not going to happen here. Or, well, I like this teacher. She's really decent. Or I went to the school and I got to get a good education, so it'll be okay. Or however bad it is, I'll just deal with it at home. Or, in other words, the desire for it not to be what it is can trick you into not seeing the severity of the problem. And like I said, that's completely normal. So I hope you don't hear anything that I'm about to say as me wagging a finger at you and saying, I'm attacking you and what the heck is wrong with you. I'm simply saying the problem is more severe than you may realize. The problem is more severe than you probably want to deal with. And I, as a resource, am here for you if and when you finally realize there's no saving this and that your child is at risk from any exposure. There's not like a little bit of exposure to this that's going to be okay. Your child's at risk from any exposure. You would not send your child back to be, an altar boy or, work in a church where you knew there was a child abusing priest, right? Even if your child didn't have lots of exposure to that particular priest, you probably would just be so grossed out, right? Like, no, I don't want my child to be even darkening the door of that church. Maybe it's a coach. Maybe it's a coach of a sport. And the coach has done some things, but never got caught for it and is still coaching that team. Would you just say to your child, now, this coach is a really bad guy, but go be coached by him? Or this league is still employing this coach, even though, he's not going to be your coach, but, that means that they probably turn a blind eye and maybe there's another coach. Would you feel comfortable with that? Would you let your child sleep over at a friend's house if you knew, through the grapevine or otherwise, that one of the two parents was abusive? What if your kid said, but Mom, no, they seem really nice and they've never done anything to me. But I'd heard enough information to convince you that on occasion that guy had been abusive to his wife, the wife had been abusive to the husband or to the children or something, would you be okay with that? Or would you say, hell no, not happening, not on my watch? Well, my point is, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a system that is full of child abusers. I use the word abuse fairly liberally on this channel to mean disrespectful of your child's individuality, goals, and personal boundaries, and disrespectful of your authority as a parent, your responsibility as a parent, your legal rights as a parent, and the closeness and bond between you and your child as a parent-child relationship. So when people are disrespectful to that degree, where they go above and beyond, either to lie to you, to conceal things from you, to belittle you, to shut you up, to censor you, to get between you and your kid, all these things, I call that abuse. It's an abuse of trust, because when you drop your child off, you are trusting them to take good care of your child, and that means respecting all of those boundaries. And it is an abuse of their authority. Not to mention it's abuse of the tax dollars that pay them. So I call it abuse. I call it child abuse because children are the ones on the receiving end of most of it. They are 100% victims. They don't have a choice but to be there. We bring them there, we drop them off, they can't just leave. They have to put up with it. They can't just cover their ears. They can't put in headphones, and drown it out. They can't not do the work. They can't tell the teacher to go blow. They can't even tell the teacher they disagree anymore. They are a captive audience, and they have to deal with it and or any fallout that comes of resisting it. I call that abuse. Your mileage may vary, but that's what I call it. And today what I want to do is make clear to you that my policy going forward is I'm going to be ruthlessly honest with you. I'm not going to deviate from this. No more am I going to discuss what to say to school boards at school board meetings. It's a waste of your time. No more am I going to talk to you about how to find the hidden this and that in the documents. You know it's there. Go back and look at my other videos. It's there. I've now covered more than half the states in my research. It's there. And we now know as of yesterday that the nation's largest teachers union has explicitly stated they're going to make sure they put it there. So we've gone from there is no CRT, we don't do CRT, what are you talking about, you crazy right-wing conspiracy theorists, to thank goodness for it. We want more of it, and we're going to appropriate money from our budget to investigate the people who are opposed to it. We're going to train all of our teachers in it. We are putting it into the school, and if you don't want it, they're tough noogies. I would definitely say that's an abuse of their power. We've seen over the past year that they're perfectly content to abuse the power they have over the schools and over your children because they influenced the CDC's recommendations and kept the schools closed longer than they otherwise would have been. They dramatically impacted your lives. You had to find some way to care for your kid, or your child had to sit there on a computer and learn that way. There were all kinds of things that they, just dangled you by a string and manipulated you all year. They had tons of power and they took full advantage. They used your need of the school to extort you for more money via the federal government in the form of CARES Act relief, which is coming right out of your future taxes and your child's future taxes, and inflation, which is also coming out of your pocket, and so on. They have better benefits than you have. They have a better pension plan than you have. And it's all on your nickel and your labor and using your children as a bargaining chip. If that's not abuse, I don't know what is. Why you would then tolerate abuse from these people and then say, oh yeah, I think we can reform the system and trust them with my child 8 hours a day, every day for 9 months. They've told you in no uncertain terms that their highest value is racial equity, not academic freedom, academic achievement individually for your child. They've done away in my state with the TIP program or then the gifted program. When you have entire counties or even states where the majority of the children are classified as gifted just to achieve equity, what does that tell you? They've dumbed things down. How is that helpful to your child? How is that not abuse of power? So I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to keep telling you, there's no chance. No, there's no chance. No sense in emailing me, no sense in contacting, no sense in asking me, what about this, what about that? That is my answer. I am sincerely sorry about it. I couldn't be more sorry about it if I tried. It is heartbreaking. I truly feel for you. I am a parent. I have 3 children. I homeschool them now. I homeschooled them in the beginning. I had no choice but to put them in the public school because of a divorce situation where it literally wasn't my choice, and I was literally forced to do it against my will, against their will for years. Fought and fought and fought, and ironically, it was the pandemic that made it easy for me to get them out because they already were going to be at home, and now they're home. But the damage, a lot of damage was done, even to my children, and even though they had a good start with homeschooling until they went into the public school. In that short time that they were in school, a lot of damage was done. Psychological damage through bullying by teachers as well as students, and also intellectual damage in terms of the way they were taught to think. And we've been gradually working on undoing that. So that's why I say I know firsthand how little it takes for them to be damaged by this. So I'm not saying this to tell you, if you don't pull your kids out, well, you're a terrible person. I'm saying do what you can to pull your kids out, to get your kids out of these schools. Use your time this summer to figure it out. Do whatever you can. Yes, it's an existential threat, and not just to your child, but to the nation as a whole, because what is the nation after all? But it's people. What is the future going to look like if a majority of our children are educated by Marxists to hate their country, to think that race is the most important thing about them, to question their parents, question their gender, question all the values you would hope to instill in them, to be taught a false history that doesn't include the perils of Marxism and communism, collectivism and statism in general, that causes them to be the kind of people who look to the state to solve their problems. What has happened historically to people who've done that? Nothing good. So right now it looks like everything is sort of okay. I mean, you look around and, things still look a little bit normal. So it's hard to believe that what I'm saying is true. But, Hitler didn't just waltz onto the scene one day with a megaphone and say, okay, everybody, I'm in charge now. Nor did Mao, nor did Pol Pot, nor did Chavez, nor did any of these people. And in almost every case, you had large numbers of young adults who got together in a mob and pretty much overruled their elders and told them to shut up. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. So I know it's hard. And I want to be here to help you figure out the hard. So if you want to contact me and say, okay, I want to do this, but I have to work full time and I've got this and I've got that, and do you have any suggestions, or what do you suggest I do, or where can I look? And I'll do my best to help you with that. I really will. I don't have the answer. There is no the answer. The answer is going to vary for different people in different locations. But I do have confidence there is an answer. There is another way for you and your child. And I'm just going to show you a few examples to illustrate my point that this is so broken, and the system as a whole and the people within the system sincerely believe that you are in the way. You, the parent, are in the way of what they want to do. You are the enemy. Okay? And again, it doesn't mean there aren't individual good teachers out there. There are. But they're powerless relative to the numbers who are not good. And the unions are not good. So I'm going to show you a couple of things. And I will tell you in advance, they're kind of disturbing. But I hope you will take from this my message, which is you have a lot more power than you think. What would happen if, for example, you and everyone you personally know banded together to get your kids out of these schools, worked together to solve the immediate child care problem, the problem of physically dealing with your kids during the hours of, whatever to whatever, whenever you thought they would be at school, so you can continue to work or do whatever. If you pooled your resources to figure out how to get, the curriculum, or how to get them their instruction, or how to get whatever it is that they need. And if you did that, and every other neighborhood did that, and every other group of friends did that, to the point where, let's say 25% of parents just up and left, these people would have a lot less power than they do. That's the grand irony, is that you who are absolutely powerless to change what they're doing within the schools right now with these school board meetings and all this, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's so entrenched. You cannot change the system. Not going to happen. It's literally not going to happen in your child's lifetime. Yours for sure, and not your child's either. It's not going to happen. Certainly not by banging your head on the brick wall of the system. The chance you have is to not participate in the system. That is literally the biggest power you have, is your feet, to get up and leave. Absolutely it is. That's how things change. It will change when enough parents stop using it. Because in this scenario, you are very similar to a battered spouse. Are you going to get the batterer to change by asking, begging, threatening, bringing in the police, bringing in, all different kinds of people to tell them what a batterer they are, showing videos of them battering? Is that how they're going to change their behavior, especially if they're getting away with it? Especially if the police are like, I don't know what you want me to do. All right, we can't stop him. And we didn't see him doing it. And like he says he's not doing it. So, you don't really have any bruises. But meanwhile, you're being abused. Or is it going to change when you leave? Not him, your life. Is your child's life going to change one iota because you show up at all the school board meetings while they're still sitting in the classes with the teachers who feel emboldened by the fact that you showing up at the school board meetings doesn't do anything? They feel whatever power they feel today, they feel even more power because they see how little effect it's having. That the school board's not budging, the state's not budging, nobody's budging. No one is sending the National Guard in to round up the teachers who are violating CRT bans. No one is sending the police in, especially in places where they've defunded the police, to deal with this. In fact, they're sending police in to arrest parents at school board meetings. So what is your child learning exactly? Mom and dad can't protect me. Mom and dad are complaining. Mom and dad are going to meetings. Mom and dad are fighting for me, but it's failing. And yet I have to still come and sit in the classroom with the teacher who knows that mom and dad showed up at the school board meeting. And with the other kids whose moms and dads didn't show up at the school board meeting. And I got to sit here. I'm just telling you the truth. I want to be that best friend who says, I'm not going to lie to you. My integrity refuses to allow me to lie to you and sit there and go, well, here's what you could do to fight the school. No, I'm not doing it anymore. I've done it since last October. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done. This closes the book on me playing along. Not happening. You're in an abusive relationship and you need to get out. And let me illustrate for you how abusive it is. Here is a gentleman giving his testimony at a school board meeting on critical race theory. You will notice he is black. He is married to a white woman, so his child is biracial. Have a listen.
My name is Ian Rice. I've got 2 children here at the Caledonia School District. It's very apparent here by all of the parents that have spoken that this board and the school district is failing. More importantly, I came here to talk about critical race theory. This theory was never meant to be brought into grade schools, high schools, at all. It's actually taught in the collegiate atmosphere, and more importantly, the legal portion of the collegiate atmosphere, to see different laws through the lens of race, from an ethics and an ethical standpoint, right? Not for grade schools and high schoolers. The problem with bringing it to high school and grade school level is that we don't have the educators to properly teach these kids. Instead, they're using it as their own agenda to indoctrinate the kids to hate each other. And whether you believe that to be true or not, the reality is that's what's happening. Critical race theory is teaching that white people are bad. That's not true. That would teach my daughter that her mother is evil. You already have an educator within your staff that has pulled my daughter aside and said, well, you're a minority, so you know better than to engage in certain things.
Wow.
Whoa.
When I was brought to the school's attention, nothing happened to the educator. Instead, my daughter was brought in, and she was ridiculed. So my question is now, with critical race theory being brought in, what is your criteria to educate the educators? And who are you to educate my children, or any of our children, in life issues? That's our job.
Yes.
Your job is to teach them math and science. Our job is to teach them about life. I believe racial issues and tensions across the U.S. are nowhere near what they used to be decades ago. Do we have a long way to go? Sure. Do we still have individuals out there that need to be taught? Absolutely. But I believe the people here don't look at me as a black man. They look at me as a man standing in front of you addressing the issue that we all are very passionate about.
That's right. That's right.
That was a wonderful testimony. Absolutely wonderful. Okay. So then I read there, so this is under James Lindsay's Twitter feed, and you'll see there are 420 comments. I didn't read all of them, but a couple caught my eye. This gentleman was asking someone he knows about it, what did she think about it? This guy gets it, he says. Here's her comment. Except that he doesn't get that learning sociology in K-12 isn't indoctrination, and that a lot of kids learn a lot of BS about life from their parents. Again, school is for students, not for parents. I really don't give a F. It should be give an F. What he thinks. I'll think about that. I really don't give an F what he thinks. A lot of kids learn a lot of BS about life from their parents. She's judge and jury. So I'm on the attack, I'm told, on Twitter, because I'm telling parents the truth about how much they hate you, okay? And this woman is okay. No, I don't think so. Here, school teachers are busy coming up with ways to hide CRT. They know you're onto them, demand transparency. This is a teacher group explaining if you can't say that things sounding like CRT, you can hide it with other words. I personally think this doesn't do them any good because they make it even more obvious. If you can't say critical race theory, say this: examining history, current laws in relation to race. If you can't say racism and anti-racism, say equality versus equity, justice and injustice, fairness, systems of oppression, organizations in control that cause or allow injustice, white supremacy, the belief that the dominant culture is superior, as if the culture is white. White privilege, structural advantage based on skin color. Culturally responsive. At least they're admitting that culturally responsive education is part of CRT. Cultural awareness, global citizenship, globally minded, as if all of us are globalists and we're all going to agree with that. Black Lives Matter. Black lives are disproportionately in danger and need our attention and support. Black lives. Okay. State why this guide. State legislators across the United States are taking initiative to forbid conversations around race and gender identity in the classroom under the umbrella phrase of critical race theory. State legislators across the United States are taking initiative to forbid conversations around race and gender identity in the classroom under the umbrella phrase of critical race theory, CRT. It is important that we strategize and reframe the conversation in an effort to educate not only our students, but the public about the tenets and goals of CRT to circumvent misinformation. So they're like, it's misinformation to tell us what it is. Okay. When possible, we advocate for direct and explicit discussions around race and gender equity. However, this guide was created for those teaching in schools where this direct language is not always permissible. We hope this guide can empower educators to continue to find alternative ways to discuss these important concepts in their classrooms. And then there's this. Union-linked coalition scripts messaging to counter parental pushback. Attacks parents and groups opposing CRT and K-12 follow closely the messaging scripts and tactics prepared by the 300-group Future of Learning Coalition CRT messaging guide, and deep in the mix was the largest teachers union in the nation, the National Education Association. One thing you guys should know, too, just because your state does not have an NEA, it's like not the NEA in your state, it's more like, the North Carolina Educators Association or whatever the heck it is. Most of these unions are affiliated. They're affiliated either with the AFT or the NEA. They are all trying to get collective bargaining. So if they don't have collective bargaining in your state, they want it and they're working hard to get it. It's called Red for Ed. The other thing is many schools of education are pushing their students to join the unions before they are even employees. So they're going out and recruiting teachers before they're even teachers, pre-service teachers. And they're offering them great deals. Like if you join the union, in the state that you end up teaching in, you'll automatically be a member in, bunches of different associations. Or conversely, if you join their national association, you'll automatically be a member in their local association. So they want to snatch up all of these people as quickly as possible. And most of them are eager to do it because their professors tell them they should, because this is how they're going to fight and fight and fight for whatever it is that they're fighting for. So this is the messaging guide. Let's take a look at what some of the messaging is. And then it says, NEA comes out openly for CRT. No discussion about the ongoing targeting of parents opposed to CRT would Without mentioning the National Education Association, NEA, the largest teachers union in the country. NEA has a budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars and has been firmly behind the push to teach CRT to children in K-12. Those of us who have followed the attacks on parents speaking out against CRT in K-12 know of deep union involvement. We saw it in the attacks on Nicole Solis in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, by the local NEA affiliate, but now it's out in the open. NEA has come out for CRT. So again, remember, they said we're not doing it. And even I made the point on this channel that no, they're not teaching CRT. They're not sitting around like they're studying the law in university, but they are using praxis. They're using critical pedagogy. And now they're saying it's essential. All right. So they passed a resolution requiring NEA to research groups opposed to CRT. They were already doing that, of course, but the resolution was important because it signaled that NEA members in your school districts are on board with investigating opponents of CRT. Second, that same representative assembly passed 2 resolutions requiring NEA to promote CRT in schools nationwide and to protect programs already in place. Programs like all these DIA training programs that you can't get your hands on because they claim that it would be a violation of their proprietary rights of ownership and you can't take a look at what your child is going to be learning, which is utterly ridiculous and a lie. The Partnership for the Future of Learning. This group is a network of 300 organizations and 20 foundations that work together as the self-description reflects. The Partnership for the Future of Learning is a network of 300 organizations and 20 foundations that protects, strengthens, and advances education, equity, and meaningful learning and supports the policies and practices that get us there. This graphic tweeted by the group in February 2021 describes the tremendous reach of the coalition. Who are we as a network? 299 organizations, 634 people, 571 engagements, and 30 projects. They're huge. Then we have the list of funders. Chan Zuckerberg. Of course it's Chan Zuckerberg. Why wouldn't there be? All right. The steering committee, they're okay. List of partners. It just goes on and on and on. Speakers and influencers list, truth in our classrooms bridges divides, and then they're all the messaging talking points. Key directives. Seize the moral high ground and engage in our terms. With attention on education, let's talk about the teaching and curricula we support and desire. Ascribe motivations to the opposition. Ascribe motivations to the opposition. Doesn't mean call them out because you know they're there. Ascribe them. Tell people the parents are racist. Instead of unwittingly repeating the opposition in order to dispel their claims, e.g., we are not teaching grade schoolers about XYZ, talk about why they're attacking the curriculum and the teachers. Oh, they're racist, terrible people, they're right-wing conspiracy theorists. Do you see this, parents? They're literally conspiring behind your back to fight you by accusing you of things you're not guilty of. And they have tons of money to do it and all of these people behind them. Sample narrative number 3, connecting to the big lie. No matter our color or background, most of us believe in handling challenges with integrity, focusing on solutions and reckoning with our past so we can create a better future. But certain politicians are trying to teach our kids to confront problems the only way they know how, lying about it. The same grifters who have peddled lies about our election want to force our teachers to peddle lies about our history. Really? How ironic coming from the people pushing 1619 Project. So this is, the only reason the teachers would believe this is the teachers don't know history, because they don't. They were never taught their history. The 5 tenets of CRT in education. Critical race theory shows how racial inequity is baked into all of our social structures, and our social and political structures reproduce racism in ways that go far beyond interpersonal dynamics. Okay, guys, I'm not going to read through all of this. I'll put a link to this in the description box. You can read it for yourselves. I think you get my point. They see you as the enemy. You parents are the enemy. Your child is their tool. Even if they cared a whole lot about your kid, look at the money and the time and the energy they are going to shut you up. How much do you really care about a child if you want to hurt their parents this badly? Can you really be said to be caring about the child this much? So one of two things. Either they are absolutely psychotic and genuinely believe that all parents in America who are opposed to CRT are hurting their children, like child abusers. And they're willing to go to any lengths to protect your child from that. Or, and that's, I'm being kind. Those are the ones who are well-intentioned. Or they know good and darn well that you're not doing that. They don't care because they want to use your kid for a political aim. I don't really like either of those options, and I'll tell you why. Because if they're of a mind that your child belongs to them and belongs to the collective, there's no end to what they will do to your child once they're out of your sight. There's nothing they won't say, and there's nothing they won't do, because they see your child as an object, not as an individual human being with boundaries and needs to be close to their parents. It's a fundamental human need. Okay? That makes that a serious problem. Or if they're so delusional as to believe that you're really an abuser, they're the state. Your child darkens the door of the school and suddenly, in loco parentis, as they're so happy to tell you, they will use any excuse possible to separate you from your child, possibly permanently, because they have custody. Custody is sort of like, 9/10 of the law. Like, they've got your kid. And if they decide, as they are already doing, that your views equal extremism, and they can convince lawmakers that they're protecting this child from violent extremism, they could take custody of your child for real and take them away from you. All because it was hard to walk away from the school. Well, which is harder? Subjecting your child to this lunacy and dealing with whatever is going to come of that, of these abusive people having control of your precious babies, or figuring it out, figuring out the childcare, figuring out the curriculum, figuring out the finances, working together with your neighbors and so forth. And then once your child is not in their custody and is nice and safe, using the power of your child's absence to push back forcefully with your elected officials, school administrators, etc., because your child is not there. And the more people you can convince to join you, the more power you have. See how that works? The only power you have is in your absence. So that's what I wanted to say today. That's my policy now. Scorched earth. The schools need to go. They just need to go. They need to be empty. And I am saying this sincerely out of love and affection for you and your children. This is not an attack. If you find this content helpful, inspiring, I hope, please like, share, subscribe, and consider joining the Locals community, where I can help you more with suggestions for how to do the hard thing and get away from these people. That's the video.